Hello, welcome everyone to this week's episode of Event Insights. I'm Chrissy with Safe Events Global. Joining me today, I have Adam Roberts, who is a health and safety specialist. He has also freelanced with us on a number of projects for a good few years now. I'm sure there'll be a few people in the chat here who have worked with Adam or know Adam. Obviously, this is a bit more of a vulnerable topic than we would have done previously. I'll be putting links to resources in the chats here if anyone wants to look into anything like that. If you also think of questions throughout the presentation that you would like to speak about maybe at the end, but don't want to ask yourself, feel free to chat me directly and I can read them out to Adam at the end. And also, Adam, I do just really want to say thank you so much. I know you feel like you're really putting yourself out there. I know people are really going to appreciate this. And I know it's a vulnerable position to put yourself in. So thank you very much ahead of time. And I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chrissy. Just before everybody came in, if I'd been given the opportunity yesterday not to do this, I would have grabbed it with both hands. So it is a challenge. I think it's a challenge for everybody. And that's kind of where we want to look at this from the start. It's very much personal, but I will start the slide deck and we'll go from there. It's very nice to see within people that I recognize some people who are on the call. So thank you very much for joining for those ones. As I said, it is definitely personal. This does not give you a one size fits all. Which one is it? It's not wanting to move, Chrissy. There we go. Right, so we'll kick off with a few terms of reference. It is very much a personal perspective. Everybody is different. It's the wonder of mental health and stress. And everybody will have different types of stress. Everybody will have different severities. And there will be different strategies and different outcomes. We are, by the human condition, all different. And that's what makes us so wonderful in what we do. This is not supposed to be and will never be for people to identify others who might be struggling. Yes, you can frame this in such a way, but I would not advocate that this is a way to identify people who are struggling. For that, I would recommend that you do a mental health first aid course and become professional and then be able to support people in those ways. This is really about compassion and understanding, so people can understand what other people might be going through or what they're going through themselves. Okay, so we'll kick off with a little bit of background on us as a set of people who work within the events industry. We absolutely thrive on stress, and we use it to motivate ourselves. We are those kind of people. We are perfectionists in what we do. We want everything to be right. We work to very tight timelines. And for an awful lot of people, when you say I work in the events industry, oh, what do you do? Oh, I've just done Metallica, or I'm doing Formula One, or I'm doing this in Australia, or whatever it might be. Everybody thinks that what we do is incredibly glamorous. Most of us know that that's not the reason why we do the job, but it is a byproduct. We do attract a certain type of person into the events industry, normally quite creative, people who think slightly differently. We're quite easily bored. So we have these people who you could class as high functioning people who work within the industry. We're not encouraged to show weaknesses. We need to have the answers to everything all the time. And we are, by nature, job insecure because most of us are freelancers. So we are constantly jockeying for position. Now, this can be really positive because you move forward quickly, you've got a good progression, but sometimes it can go wrong. And we are nomadic. A lot of us don't have bases, or if we do have bases, we don't actually get back to them as often as we would like. And that's kind of like something which secures and grounds us. And we seek highs, we all go, wow, we did that. So we do get a very tangibility factor, which does affect our emotions because we want to seek that emotional high, which comes with what we do, which is a successful event. Now, all of these things can turn into negatives. Then the things that we kind of just put up with, long hours, the food and the stress can become crippling to us. We don't get told when we make mistakes. So we are literally sitting there sometimes going, why this has happened. We're not good as an industry in giving feedback to people. And then the team that you work within can be very lonely and very isolating because you don't understand why the atmosphere might have changed. And things which normally would just bounce off us, criticism or something which didn't quite work well, it then starts to land. We take it to heart. And that's when we start getting into a loss of perspective. We get into what I would class as a feedback loop where things which were could have been positive now are negative, and they feed into more negative thoughts, and you create this spiral effect of a negativity. And this is what can then create a mental health crisis for somebody. So for people who are within the industry, and this is for you to look at from inside, it's for your insight, it's not to look at other people. There are signposts. So a lack of motivation, an absolute classic. That could go across any industry, and not just ours. Poor personal presentation. Can you really be bothered today to get up and have a shower, have a shave if you're a man, and get out the door in nicely presented clothing? Now, some people, they always look like they've been dragged their heads backwards no matter what they do. You put a suit on me, it always looks like it's crumpled within 5 minutes. But that's not to say that for you're not actually doing that self-care bit for your presentation as a person, and you'll know yourself if you aren't. Addictions. We are an industry where this is prevalent, and because there is temptation. Now, addiction can be all sorts of things. It can be shopping. We all get a high from going out and spending some money. I do, certainly. If I'm feeling a bit down, I can go and buy something, makes me feel better. Consumerism, drugs, gambling, drinking, exercise can be an addiction as well. You are looking for something to replicate a high that you get on site, and it can go from a positive to a destructive factor. Irritability. Difficult, this one, because quite a lot of time we aren't irritable as we normally are because we've got lack of sleep or the stress, but then it turns into a possible sign that you are facing burnout. Poor sleep. Very much so, this one. I think most of us would sit there, and it's not just, we're really nervous because it's opening night, opening event day and next day. It's that you're just not waking up and you just feel that you haven't had a good sleep. Lack of appetite. Again, classic one for a mental health decline. Anxiety. And this is really difficult because anxiety is a sign, but it can be a symptom. It can be the thing which is happening just by itself. Anxiety is quite indefinable, but if something is not normal in your anxiety levels, and some people operate as high functioning with high anxiety levels, then you need to be able to notice this and understand this. And if you step back, you start isolating yourself. Now, again, when we move further forward within this, you will actually find that sometimes stepping back and isolating yourself is actually a really good coping mechanism. But sometimes you need to look at it and say, no, I'm doing this because I'm not coping. And again, as we said before, these will enforce a feedback loop. Most addictions create a false high, which then feeds into a depressive situation. Alcohol is depressive, for example. So they will make things worse, and then increases your downward spiral, and it gets you into a position where potentially you are going to have a mental health breakdown of some description, and it is shades. So for me as a person, I've had depression since forever. Probably my teenage years, if you want to go back all the way that far. And I have had suicidal thoughts at points in time in my life. For anybody who wants to know, my chosen way was to jump off a building. And for those of you who know me, who knows that I've worked at height and I've rigged for many years, that's quite counterintuitive. But that was that was going to be my way of doing it when I thought about it. I didn't want to accept that I got depression. Didn't want to accept that anything was wrong. It was just life. I wanted to be strong, give an outside perception that I was, that was absolutely fine. I medicated myself, as many people do. You find things which you can look after. I think my main choice of medication was alcohol, as it is for a great many people, and because it gave me an excuse for some of my behaviours, etc. I'm not going to go into the addiction part of it, but for me, and most people, you do medicate in some way, shape, or form. I kept on telling myself that it wasn't that bad. I didn't need help. I didn't want help, but I didn't need help because I was okay. When I recognised that I wasn't getting things done and I wasn't coping, I thought that if I said that I was going to do it for my partner, my wife, for my children, that would be the thing which would make me pull my socks off. Finish that dissertation, whatever it is. It doesn't work. And all it does, in actual fact, is you create false promises to people and you hurt them. Doing it for somebody else is not going to work for you. You have to want to do it for yourself. This is very much your personal journey, your personal battle. That doesn't mean that you can't get help and you can't get support, but it's very much you have to be doing it for yourself, not for anybody else. It will not work, in my experience, if you try and do it for your mother, your wife, your children, your friends, whatever. And this is one of the tough ones, is it only worked for me, and I think it only works for most people, when I'd hit absolute rock bottom and I had no other option. Now, I had done false start after false start after false start. So rock bottom for me was definitely in 2013. That's when, after 20 years of counselling, doing things, all sorts of other things, short-termism, that's when I really took this seriously and started to engage myself in the process. And even then, I was in denial. I thought it was fixed before I was. I thought, right, sorted, right, 6 months of doing this and I'm okay now, and I'll just get on with, and I'll go back to what I was doing before with a few minor modifications. But in actual fact, I just reverted back to type. Looked at medication as being something which is a failure. Well, if I need pills, then antidepressants, then I've failed in my recovery and my process of management. And then I had to go through the hard bit, which is process of accepting that this isn't going to go away. For me, this is something which will happen for the rest of my life. I will manage for the rest of my life. I'm not a survivor. I'm a mental health and management person, because this is not going to go away. For many people, it might be a small blip and they revert back to their type, or it could be long term. It could be something which happens for a reason. It could be, for example, post-pregnancy. It could be menopausal in women, for example. It could be due to a death. But for me, this is something which I need to live with for the rest of my life. And I'm happy for that. Absolutely happy. But you have to look at the understanding and creating coping strategies, which will then move you forward for the rest of your days. Okay? It's not perfect. It's not a timeline. It's not logical. You will go up. You will go down. You will go backwards. This is not A to B to C to D to E, and it all works perfectly. It just doesn't. And to be perfectly frank, if it was, then we'd all be facsimiles of the same human. It's not linear. It's absolutely not linear. It is complicated, and generally, it is something which will be a combination of issues, not just one. And sometimes you just have a bad day. Today is a bit rubbish, and this will be a theme going through. And unexplainable. You just have to get on and see it. Okay. Now, I say it took me over 20 years to really start the process, and it will be ongoing. And I'm happy for it to be ongoing for the rest of my days. And that's absolutely fine for me. For others, it may well be very different, but for me, it's definitely just an ongoing process, and I have accepted that. Okay, so the journey. Okay. Everybody's journey is different, and it is an emotional journey. It is not logical. A lot will not make sense if you look at it through logic. So we have to reframe and change how we view this. You find a description that fits. that puts how you feel and how you experience your mental health issues as a good description. And everybody's is different. So what I say for me may not work for somebody else. It probably won't work for somebody else. And mine came from Monty Don's book, Edit Your Garden, where he describes his depression and how it affects him. And that it comes out of nowhere sometimes, and how he identifies it. And it was an absolute game changer for me. It was written with compassion, it was written with care, and it described really how I felt and how it affected me. That's mine. Everybody else's will be different, though. Okay. We need to, as a society, but just for yourself, remove the stigma associated with a mental health issue. Okay, so you need to be open because you need to be honest with yourself and with others. But you need to read the room, and also put it in the correct time place, and not use as an excuse. Just you say that I am depressed, or I'm not coping because of whatever, does not give you an excuse, a day pass to behave in a certain way, or not to get your work done, or whatever else. It is a statement. It is not an excuse. Okay, you will be surprised that people will come forward with compassion and understanding, and go, wow, you're not alone. And this is really the reason that we're doing this talk today. I hope that I'm going to be met with compassion and understanding by my colleagues, or else I wouldn't be doing this. And it does take a lot to put out, and you have to be brave. And as I said right at the beginning, if you'd given me the offer to run away yesterday, I'd have taken it. But the benefit, hopefully, will outweigh the risk from this perspective. And coming back in, it's okay not to be okay. Don't bottle it up. Don't pretend that everything's all right when it's not. That's not to say that you are then going to be given a day pass, but it's okay just to say, I'm not coping it today. And everybody will present differently and will have different answers that they need to find for themselves. But there is a commonality, but there's not a single path. It'd be dead easy if we treated this. This is not like a broken leg. If you have a broken leg, it's easy. Bingo, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And the bones will knit in 12 weeks if you're a healthy adult in the prime of your life, and then you'll be back to it with a bit of physiotherapy. You'll be good as new again, basically. But it doesn't work like that for mental health, which is where the challenge comes in. And it isn't easy. It's bloody hard work. It is absolutely bloody hard work, and it can be exhausting at times. But if we put in process coping strategies and all the other things, it becomes part of your day-to-day life, and then you don't notice it as much. And when you start this process, your aim, I want to be better, I want to be normal, or whatever it might be, it's not going to be the final outcome. The final outcome may not be what you want it to be. It may be better than you expect it to be. But unless you start the process, then you will be where you are and you will not change. So critical management. When we have a mental health crisis, I speak from experience on this one, 2013, it's not normal. Now, for the outside people or for everything else or hindsight, you'll realise that the run-up to this, you weren't normal. But we are great at self-deception, and we just go, oh, it's just normal, I'll just get on with it, it's just a blip, whatever it is. Okay? And then you get that stop moment where you realise, no, we're past normal, we're into critical. And mine was a massive panic attack, which I'd never had before. And suddenly I realised this really couldn't go on any longer. And it's very lonely. It is you as a person not being able to manage, not being able to cope. And it is a very, very lonely and very frightening place when this happens. Your mental health may not present where you get to this stage. But for me, this was how I presented. There needs to be help accessed. I was very fortunate I could make a phone call. I was in London. I was a long way from home. And I knew prior to this that I wasn't really coping, but I was okay. Yeah, I was just another black day. And now we have got a better situation where you potentially do have mental health first aiders. You do have a level of basic support on quite a lot of sites, and people are more open to talk. But you need to, if you can't access that help, then you're going to go into a far more critical position. Okay, so it might be phone, it might be friends. Either people phone me up who know where I've been, and they've talked to me, and I've talked to them and talked them through that first crisis moment of loneliness and scared before they then move on to the next thing. And there are specialist care through helplines now, which there are resources which I've listed at the back of the presentation. So there are ways to seek help. Probably, the last ones are the Samaritans, and then the emergency services. The critical thing at this moment in time is that the people who are going through this need to be heard and supported. And this is the only time I would suggest that this is pertinent and relevant in itself. All right? They need to be able to heard. This is not about finding solutions. This is literally about hearing them, letting them download whatever it is, and that will then take them out of that critical moment. Okay, you may have to get involved with professional services. I went to see medical professionals when I had mine, and I went on medication. Okay, which it may not be suitable for all situations. Again, this is a very personal situation for me. But don't shy away from the medical situation. If you had a broken bone, you would go to seek medical support. So this is you in a mental breakdown, and so you can, and don't feel that there is stigma there with it. And every single person will have a different combination of treatment. Okay, and at the right time in the right situation, and what might work before may not work again. It is incredibly personal to the time, the place, and the person. So once we've got through that first critical position, what do we have to do next, or what should we do next? You can do nothing. I would heartily advocate against it, but you can do nothing. So the first bit that most people go through is that they will unburden themselves. Whether this is in counselling, whether this is friends, whether this is to family, this is easy. It won't feel it at the time, but it's dead easy just to splurge, let it all out, and you will feel better for it. And that's the easy part. The hardest part is what comes next. And this is where a lot of people will sit at this point in time and go, well, I feel better now, so I'm okay. Normal service resumes. One approach won't fit all. I said before, this is emotional. It's not logical. It's not going to make sense most of the time. Okay. We are very, very good at papering over cracks and denialism. That's what humans do. Okay. So you have to start digging through the stuff which is not pleasant. All right. Don't expect people, and people should not be put in this, but you should not put people in this position. Nobody is here to rescue and save you. Okay? They are there to support you. This is a critical point. If you expect somebody to come and rescue and save you, you have already torpedoed your recovery and your process. They will support you. They will give you ideas. They will listen. They will do lots of things. But they're not the ones. They can't give you the answers. The only person who can give you the answers is you, with their support. Now, whether that's psychiatry, counselling, cognitive behavioural therapy, whatever it might be, that is support. Okay? The only person who can do this is you. Okay? We are very good at prioritising other issues above our mental health. Well, I'll get around to it once I've done this. I can't do this because I've got all these other things to do. None of us are indispensable in the role that we do, even though we would like to tell people we are. So for you to say, right, I'm going to quit now, or I'm going to take a week out, somebody else is going to have to pick up my slack. They will do it. I think quite a lot of people may have somebody's had a medical emergency back home, elderly relative, an ill spouse, we manage to cover their stuff off. So why can't we cover stuff off and support people when they're not coping themselves? So, and there is a stigma there, but the more we talk about it, the more we put in process things, then the better we can be at supporting this stuff. Okay. It's also very easy to focus on the symptoms, the addictions, the gambling, the drugs, the alcohol, the whatever it might be. And we need to step back and look at what and why did we get to the place where we are presenting with these symptoms. Okay. You will fail in this process. If you are going to recover and make yourself better, you may not want to. Let's be clear. You may say, something, I'm just going to be this person, and we'll cover off that later. You will fail. This is not a linear process, as I keep on saying. This is very much failure as part of it. And for us as high achieving, high functioning individuals in our industry, we don't like failure. We don't do failure. So that is part of the stress that we put onto ourselves. Okay. It will take a long time. It's not an easy fix. And it will be peeling back an onion. Now, the whole classic, if you want to go into Freud and these things, tell me about your parents. I'm not saying that we're getting down to that or what happened to you when you're growing up as a child. I personally am very resistant to that as a position, but you will unpeel the onion to get back to what are the root causes. And we'll do a root cause analysis when we have an accident. So why can't we do a root cause analysis on ourselves? And sometimes there is an answer. It is just how it is. And we have to get into acceptance, which will come on to that. Sometimes that's just how life is. And any kind of therapy or going through the process of looking at yourself and trying to improve yourself, you won't like what you see at times. You really won't. Your behavior up until the point in time that you've got to this will have hurt people. And you have to literally go back and look at yourself in a mirror. And it's not pleasant and it's very unforgiving. And you have to try and make peace with what's happened before and move forward from that. And as we'll come on again, let it go in an Elsa style. Okay? And life is a compromise. This is something logically we know life's a compromise, but emotionally, are we able to go, something? This is just how it is now. So then we move into longer term management. For me, this is the stage that I'm in, and I have to look at myself all the time. So identify the whys. Why are we behaving like this? Why are we getting into this situation? Why is it the way that it is? Okay. And really understand these sections. Now, you may not stop it, but you can understand why we've got into the position that we've got into. And learn the differences between negative and positive stress. Now, this will change day to day. This is not a fixed position. 1 minute the stress is positive, the next minute that stress has become negative. Okay. But if you can recognize when something is affecting you in a negative manner rather than in a positive manner, then you can then readjust your position, your mindset to move forward. What are triggers which cause the reaction for you? Robbie Williams has very clearly said that for his addiction, one of his triggers is going on tour. Well, then potentially, do I not go on tour again? As a technician, for example, do I, go, right, this is a really unhealthy environment for me, I'm not going to go on tour? Or do I go, at the moment, I am not strong enough to go on tour, but I may well be in the future? The situations that are precursors, and this is again about insight into you. So you will, as you go through a process, you will recognize when you're getting closer. So, when things are beginning to build up, what situations? It could be a conflict situation. It could be just overwork. It could be say yes to everything when you shouldn't. What are those precursors? So you have to be able to develop insight and then create resilience. Resilience can be, when you're really struggling, put things as little wins. A little win might be getting out of bed in the morning, having a shave. You know, a little win could be all sorts of things. But instead of these just things being just things you do, and you will realize that you can't quite do quite a lot of these things sometimes, these are actual wins that you've managed to do this. Okay? Check yourself. Check in regularly. You know, really look and go, am I doing okay? Take a step back. Take a step back. Program some time into your day to check yourself. And by checking yourself, that doesn't mean going on your phone or playing Sudoku or doing that. It's just sitting there and maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. Is it all okay? All right. There will be things which will make it better in the short term. A lot of that for me is just start nibbling, getting through your processes that you've got to do. And then you need to keep an eye on your long-term aims, which is very difficult because life gets in the way, work gets in the way, kids, you know, DIY, all these kind of things get in the way. And then create goals and rewards. Build a work-life balance. Which everybody, oh, you must have a work-life balance. No, but actually do it. You know, we'll talk about our work-life balance, but we don't actually build it in. You know, so to say, no, hold on, I'm going to do this because this works for me in a leisure position to do this. It might be going for a run every evening. It might be, you know, whatever it is. There's all sorts of things that you can do, but actually build it and stick to it. Okay. Again, we went from the critical, we went to the short term. Now in long term, sometimes it's just a bit shit. And that's it. End of. Don't overanalyze. Don't think. You know, long term, it can be. It's just going to be a bit shit today. And reframe negatives as positives. Okay. So this is like, right. So what could I do? Yeah. What can I learn from this? What could I do better? Is it actually me, or is it something I have no control over? You know, be honest, obviously, but sometimes we take to heart things that we have no control over. It's not us. We've done everything we can, you know, in our work situation, for example, and that's their stuff, not ours. Okay. And when we are all doing jobs, stop, step back, look at the happy smiley faces. Remember the reason why we do what we do. Now, what is it about what we do which we enjoy? And sometimes that's all it takes is just you to sit and go, hold on a minute, just stop, step back, look, and take that positive and really take it, really engage with, really enjoy that I was part of the process which made these people happy or whatever it is. And here we go, let it go. We all take things to heart. And when you are down, they come, they hit you, they land and everything else. You're never going to manage it completely, but you learn to try and do more of letting go. I would say that for me, one of the things which is a real precursor to me struggling at any point in time is that I stop letting things go. So for me, this is like, right, I'm not letting this go. Right. So I need to realize that, you know, this is one of the whys. This is one of my trigger points. And I need to go back around. I need to recircle around and start again on this one. Okay. And all of this can be done by therapy, personal growth techniques, but generally a lot of hard work and prioritizing this, not leaving it to tomorrow because tomorrow never comes. What I would also put in here is if you have good habits or you want to change habits, a habit takes at least 28 days. So an action takes at least 28 days to become a habit. And so that, don't try and go, right, after 5 days, right, this just is part of my daily routine. It will take at least 28 days to do this. So I'm going to go on to coping strategies, which kind of work with long term. Okay, anchoring to positives. For me, right in the beginning, if I didn't anchor to positives and positive visualizations, you know, what am I thankful for? You know, what are my thankful things? Then it's that self check. Put away your phone. Social media when you are in a bad place is just a supercharger for you being a better place, because you've lost perspective. So Instagram, instead of having the perspective, oh, this is everybody's best life, or it's a bit fake, you suddenly thinking, oh God, why am I doing this? LinkedIn can also have that effect. Any of them can. Put away your phone. Stop. Re-engage with the world. I'm not saying advocate a complete detox, but be aware when a phone and the apps on the phone are influencing you negatively rather than positively. Visualization. One of the things which for me, which when I was really stressed and coming out of my mental health crisis, was visualization, which sounds incredibly happy clappy, but it really was. If I visualized my children sleeping in their beds at night, and I'd stood there and looked at them, that made a huge difference. I rarely do it now, but that for me made a huge difference. And a visualization of something which is your happy place, inverted commas. I know that sounds very hippy dippy, but it can really work. Mindfulness, again, another lovely buzzword, but for me, mindfulness is clearing your brain, giving your brain a time to just stop worrying. Now, for me, if I do yoga at a lunchtime, it will clear all the clutter, and that afternoon will be the most productive afternoon I have, because my brain is now clear of all the stuff which is zipping around here, there, and everywhere, and I'm just focused on getting this job done, then that job done, then this task, then this task, and this task, and I'm super productive. And that's one version of mindfulness. It could be meditation, it could be all sorts of things. Reframe things as to what you can learn from them, what the positives are from them. This is not an excuse. We're not making excuses for why something didn't go wrong or didn't work quite right. It's about reframing in your head as to what you can learn from it. Not focusing on the negatives, but also not making excuses. Absolutely not. It's somebody else's fault. Well, no, that doesn't wash for any of us and shouldn't at all. And then it's the classic, it's the bite size. When things are massive and you see a wall of work, it's breaking things down into small pieces, making a start. I've actually found now that when I've got complete document writer's block, if I just type into AI, I want this, and it just gives me some words on the page, and I disagree with most of those words, but it gets me started. And sometimes that is all you need to get yourself going again. Okay. And you need to tackle stuff in the background, whatever it is. We have great excuses for not doing this. We're fine again. We're coping. We're living day to day. And for a lot of us, accessing that care to do the big stuff, to do the heavy lifting, is very difficult because it's expensive, it's oversubscribed, and it needs you to be in a base. And we are always moving. So seeing a psychiatrist, for example, well, I want to see you every week for 6-7 weeks. Well, I can't because I'm in London this week and I'm in Hamburg next week and I'm over there. It's got much better with Teams and with able to talk over the internet. So we can do it. We may not get it in the way that we want, but we have to make the compromise. But just say, well, it doesn't work for me because I need to be here. Again, that's not gonna improve your life. Lists might work for you. They sometimes work for me. They sometimes I make a list and I go, oh, geez, I've got so much to do. I just can't cope with it. So, it can be positive, can be negative. And when you are down and life's a bit shit, tomorrow is another day. You can feel shit for one day. You don't feel shit and get out of bed and not get out of bed day after day after day. You need to look at your diet, your sleep, alcohol intake, especially drugs, and your stress. If you have a good diet and a good mix, that will be an immediate precursor as a building block to make your life better. If you are living on takeaways, deep fried food, that's really, you're laying a foundation of poor outcome. Exercise on this. Now, exercise can be a drug, which means that it's very destructive, but you do need to get out. You need to do exercise, not sitting on your bum all day in front of a computer or on your phone in the evening. Get out there, do something, whatever it is. And it can be a plethora of things, right? And focus on your enjoyment and fulfillment. And this is about the reframing section and the mindfulness. Did I enjoy that? Yes. Well, then really think about it and point it out to yourself that was enjoyable and it was fulfilling. Yeah. In whatever it is. And as my counsellor said many, many years ago, when I went, I just want to be better. I want everything to be good. I want everything to be great. And he turned around to me and went, what if this is as good as it gets? And that was a big whoa moment. And yeah, we can't all be the greatest rocket scientist or the most successful person. And some of that is just acceptance that this is the best that it's going to be. Okay. And have a mentor you can speak to. I've got a few people, I'm struggling. They can phone me up and go, I'm struggling. And that's all it is. We don't need somebody to find a solution. We just need somebody who sits there and goes, yeah, I get it. 5-minute conversation, 10 tops. We're not looking for solutions. We're just looking for somebody that we can say, this is it. Might be a partner, might be a friend, could be a colleague, whatever it is. Time off. So now this is one which Sophie Phillip put into me. You've got to plan your time off. You really have to plan your time off. Make it fulfilling. Or if your plan is literally shut the door on the world for 48 hours and then eat junk food and sit and watch daytime TV in your pants, but plan that's what you're going to do. And that you're fine with it for however long you're going to do that. Don't go back to back on jobs. This is Sophie Phillips said this. Always program in a day or two between jobs. You're never always going to manage to do it, but ultimately, if you are freelance or whatever else, this is your work-life balance. A day stop, a day of life admin or whatever it might be. I think is something which really should be prioritized for everybody. The age old. Have hobbies and life outside the work. Easier said than done, but it is possible. It is something. Look, we're all sitting here and saying this is the ideal world. Right? You can strive for this. You may not achieve it all, but you'll be in a better place than if you didn't try and do it in the first place. And say yes to things on site. New experiences. If you are in the desert for 3 months, really try and do some new things, make new friends, put yourself out there. But equally, if you just want to go home, don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel that you should fall into peer pressure, and go and do something because you just don't want to do it, and some of that is being a bit selfish, and there's nothing wrong with that. Time and the place. Don't be overly selfish, but equally, if today's like, no, I don't want to do this, go for it. And work out what gives you the headspace, what gives you fulfillment. For me, I love pottering in my garden. I like making things out of wood. Top, put my hands in the soil on a nice, inverted commas, sunny day or cold day. Really, really works for me. It gives me grounding. For other people, it's going to the beach and surfing. Could be computer game, could be exercise, could be extreme sports, whatever it is. Could be skiing. What gives you headspace? What gives you that mindfulness switch off for a period of time, which isn't meditation, but it is just time when you're focusing on something else. I say mine, absolutely gardening. And if you told me in my early 30s that my highlight of my year was a good crop of vegetables and and everything growing, I'd have laughed at you. But it is now. And that's one of the great things, is that we change as human beings. So what will work when you're in your 30s or your 20s will not work in your 40s, your 50s. It's all about your time and place in life. And find who your tribe is. Who are the people who are like-minded? And if they're not like-minded, you can still be colleagues, you can still be friends. But you don't have to be friends with everybody who you work with. Find your tribe, find the people who think like you. That doesn't mean to say that you're not going to engage with people who aren't, because that's cliques and that's everything else. But work out what your tribe is and which people and which systems give you fulfillment. And I would heartily recommend leaning into them. Okay, so to recap, sometimes you won't cope, even if you're in a recovery situation, even if you're trying to improve yourself. And that's just life. Okay. To admit that you're struggling is a position of strength, not of weakness. Absolutely. Because if you don't acknowledge it and be able to vocalize it, then you will still be in a position where you are denying, and then things heap upon heap. Just because you have a crap day doesn't mean that you don't get out of bed. And yes, you can have permission, give you permission to have a day off, but multiple days watching daytime TV and sleeping in and not getting out of bed in your pajamas is not going to be good for you in any way, shape, or form. Okay, putting your head in the sand, and we are great at denial and every procrastination. It won't work. It will just make everything worse. Now, it's not saying you have to deal with everything off the bat, but if you start nibbling, dealing with bits and bits and bits, this is an evolutionary process which you can carry on through. Now, that you're not fixed. You probably won't ever be completely fixed, and it's not failure. That's just life. That's just life. But that is logic and emotion butting up against each other. We can say that till we're blue in the face. Until you emotionally accept that, then that is where you will then start doing self-improvement. Just because you failed at one thing does not mean that you've gone back to ground zero. So another thing that one of my counsellors came up with was, if you say that you're at the base, you're at the bottom, and you're miserable, and you start climbing up a spiral vertically, so you're going round, 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 and then you do something wrong, you fall off. You fall all the way to the bottom. What if we put that spiral on its side? So you're doing this. So when you fall, you only fall that far. Again, that's about reframing, and that really worked for me. That you don't have to, right, because I failed at this one thing, doesn't mean that I failed at everything else. Yeah. And you learn from these things. You learn. It is an evolving, continual process. So I look at something which is called comfortable misery, which is kind of like, I think somebody's probably thought of it, but it's kind of like, it's my claim. So, and this is the question. What do you want to be? Do you want to be comfortable in your misery because it's a stable, known environment? Or do you want to put yourself out there and take steps which will give you greater reward? And it's entire, and everybody's positions on this will be different. But I personally think that it's better to take chances and put yourself out there than it is to be miserable, but that it's a known entity. So a few resources which you can go through, which are very much UK centric. There's a campaign against living miserably. There's touring and mental health. A lot of you may not tour, but there are some really good resources there. Mind UK have got an excellent set of resources put on theirs. Alistair Campbell's books. You may not agree with politics, but his books are really very, very good. For people to find out a description of how they feel. One of his positions, which is quite enlightening, is you can't feel real true happiness until you felt true misery, which is worth thinking about. And for me, Monty Don and the Jewel Garden was the book which changed everything for me. My email is at the bottom there. I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to contact me after this, you are more than welcome to. Just not all at the same time, please. I've got a busy schedule. And that's it. I hope you have found this useful in some way, shape, or form.
Adam, thank you so much. That was really, really fantastic. I know it's an uncomfortable conversation. So I know I speak for everyone here when we say that we really, really appreciate the level of openness and honesty that you had there in sharing everything with us.
It's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. That went better than I thought it was going to. I didn't cover everything off, but it's my journey. It's not somebody else's, and this is what we really the severity of the situation, or not. It is really about people. Everybody is different, which is what makes this so difficult, because we'd love an easy answer. Yeah. But everybody's journey is different.
100%. And I mean, even you saying there, you didn't cover everything off. I think the depth that you did put in was really genuinely impressive and insightful. In particular, like the first couple of slides, I feel like you probably put into words quite a lot of like how people have felt over the years themselves. Like I know myself, I've suffered depression since my early teens. So a lot of the things there, I was like, yep, tick, 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 tick. Sometimes you don't even realize, you know. But I think anyone who has suffered depression will know that it is a cyclical thing. Like, as you say, you're never going to be fully fixed. So I think the coping strategies, the long-term management that you mentioned was just, it's really, really important. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, and I know for me, darkness and the winter, as I get older as well, this is how it changes. This whole thing about darkness in winter, I really struggle with now. And I didn't struggle with it 10 years ago. But for me now, it's just like I need, look, if it snows and it's a bright day, that makes a huge difference. But this grey dank really affects me more now than it used to. Now, that's not to say that I can't cope with it, but I just acknowledge that, I have to think about this now in a way that I didn't have to think about before. And some things which used to have, which used to have to think about before, I don't have to think about any longer.
Yeah.
Human beings are evolving, are evolving people.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the great wonder of us as a set of people.
Yeah. I think when you're at different points in your life, there's different things that will trigger you or different kind of things that are going to affect you like that. So it's always interesting kind of to track those. We did have a couple of questions come in, which I'll read out now. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to fire them in. We have one from Mark here saying, in your experience, how do you discern between a regular bad day and something maybe a bit more than that?
Oh, this is what takes insight. Sometimes a regular bad day can turn into a really proper problem, and sometimes you go, it's a regular bad day. Oh, right, I need to think about it. And everyone can be different. You have to give yourself permission, and everybody is different. You have to give yourself permission to go, today's just a crap day, right? And then probably if you sit there and and if you start engaging with people and it's a crap day and it carries on getting worse, then that might be where you need to look at it. Sometimes you'll have a whole bad day and then wake up the next day and it's still a bad day. And it may not be a bad day, depending on how you wake up. And you can go, right, no, today's a bad day, so I'm going to go off and do something completely different, which is good for me. And that'll nip it in the bud. Or that might go, all I'm doing is I'm just keeping the wolf from the door for 24 hours. Again, you just can't tell. You just can't tell. And that's part of the resilience and just the acceptance that there is no answer for this. What worked this day isn't going to work this day. And that's absolutely fine. And you've got to be fine with it. And that's really frustrating for people who are perfectionists and control freaks, because we don't like that. But you just have to work. You kind of have to roll with it.
Yeah, true. I feel like sometimes if you are kind of slipping into a depressive state, part of your mind is like, oh, well, it's going to be fine in a day or two. And then if it's not, you almost slip deeper because you are like,
absolutely. Or you go, right, I'm going to start, I'm getting depressed. Right, so I'm going to start doing all the stuff. And either A, you didn't need to, but I think, it's that. Or B, your interventions in your own space aren't functioning that time because what you've done before isn't working this time. And it's just really complicated. It's just really complicated that the solution might not be this time what it was the last time. And sometimes it is just, you talk yourself into it. You absolutely talk yourself into, I feel down because I feel down. And then you start talking yourself into feeling more down. And in actual fact, it's just not making your life any better.
Yeah.
But for me, in that situation, having a 5-10 minute conversation with somebody may well be the thing which works this time. It's like, I'm just really struggling. Oh, well, it'll be better and whatever else. I'm just vocalizing it. Sometimes that'll work. Absolutely work. But sometimes that won't.
I think one thing you mentioned as well at one stage actually was sometimes there's not always a reason. And I find that sometimes people dig and dig and dig for a reason and they almost freak out more because they can't find one. But once you accept that, sometimes things just are a bit crap. That can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, and I think we all want an answer. And I think now we are in a very short-term consumerist society where not only do we want everything to have an answer, but we want that answer to be now.
Yeah.
And we have impatience, and it just don't work like that quite a lot of the time. It really don't work like that. And where we are in a societal integration with us as people, we have to fight against that to a certain extent, because that's just innateness now. I've got this problem. And also in the world we are working, we find creative quick fixes. We have to. And then when that can't actually happen because it's more complicated than that, then we, as a subset of the workforce in the industry we work in, that can really, really be difficult to just go, it just is how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, sometimes you just have to roll with it.
Yep. And for most people who work in the events industry, one of the worst things you can say is it is what it is, and shrug your shoulders and walk away. That's an excuse. That's the excuse. Oh, it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about that. Oh, off we go. That doesn't wash. So therefore, why should that wash in our personal, emotional life? And these are the challenges that we have.
Very true. I did actually just get a message there for this mental health first aider here. When there's a change in behavior for longer periods, that's an important sign to suspect mental illness compared to just having a bad day. So that's kind of the difference there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, there are patterns. There are without shadow of that patterns and behavioral, behavioral changes and all these things. But that's very much personal to the person. And it is very much personal to the person because everybody is absolutely different. Yeah. Yes, as I said, that there will be commonality here, but how people interact with themselves and with each other, and then what coping strategies will work for them, are all completely different. But there is commonality that unless you find some coping strategies, or unless you find or you spend time thinking about this, or looking at yourself, then you're on hiding to nothing.
Yeah, very true. You really have to kind of tailor it to yourself, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. And that is the wonder of the human condition. It'd be dull if we were all simple, simple and it would be easy. But I'm kind of maybe the thing to end on, the benefits and the rewards are huge. They are absolutely huge. When I was 2010, I was homeless.
Wow.
I lived in a sheltered housing accommodation next to a bunch of drug dealers, and I had no idea as how I was going to get out of the situation. 15 years later, I am where I am. Now that was comfortable misery. It was really comfortable misery. I knew, I had council tax payments, and I was, claim benefits and all these kind of things, and I knew that I had £5 a day to spend, and that's what I had, and all this kind of stuff. But it was known. It was a completely fixed known entity, but it was shit. All right, but you have to step out of that sometimes, which is inverted commas comfortable misery, and look at what the rewards are.
As you said, look at where you are now, and a lot of people might just sit in that comfortable misery and feel like they just can't get themselves out of it. So it really just goes to show that you can change your perspective on things and you can get yourself out of these things.
Yeah. And, and one of the biggest ones is you're not a victim. We are not victims. And I know from personal experience, as people go, I'm really struggling. Okay, right. Well, let's help you out. But they want to be a victim. They want to be a victim. It's somebody else's fault. This is not. This is you, and this is the real one. Other things to take away is nobody can save you. Nobody can rescue you. You have to do it. And because otherwise, it will not work. It will not work. People can support you. They can give you frameworks to work in. They can do lots of things, but they cannot rescue you and they cannot save you. It just will not happen.
Yeah, completely agree. And an excellent point to end on. To let everyone in the chat know, the slides will be available for this afterwards. I can send it on to you guys. I know we've had quite a few people asking. Adam, there's been a lot of interest in this. I'll actually send you on the chat log from this afterwards because it has been really insightful. And I know you were uncomfortable about speaking about this ahead of time. So I hope you feel so much better now knowing that you really have helped quite a lot of people potentially.
Well, here's hoping that somebody that people, if one person gets something out of it and feeling that they're not alone and, in where they are, then I've succeeded. If more, great, no problem at all. But as I say, I am on LinkedIn. You've got my email address there as well. I am very happy to talk to people and to take opinion or feedback or thought or anything else. And, it is the thing. Again, we are health and safety professionals. Quite a few people who are here. We focused on safety forever. When are we going to focus on health? Because root cause, we really need to focus on health, and we don't. Because it's too difficult, too difficult, too complicated. Somebody else's job, it's a health professional's job, all this kind of stuff. All this kind of stuff. But we need to start. It's difficult. But we need to start, just if this is my little bit, to start a conversation or to start moving this forward a bit within the industry and the events industry rather than leaving it to another bunch. We need to have a tied up, cohesive approach to things like this. And that's what I kind of came on here to try and provoke.
Yeah, well, I have no doubt that you've absolutely succeeded in that. So thank you again for sharing your story. Thank you everyone here for joining us today. We'll see you in the next one. And in the meantime, as I said, we will be sending out these slides. The recording will be available on our YouTube on Friday. And Adam, I can't thank you enough. Thank you again. That was so brilliant.
No problem. Thank you very much, Chrissy. Take care.
And have a great day.
Thanks.